I'll try to hit it. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And this is episode 2 of
Socratic Sports.
Hey, what's going on, Joe, man?
Nothing much, Chef Los.
Yeah,
feeling good. Excited to be back. Excited to be back.
Yes. And hopefully you guys enjoyed episode 1. It was our little introduction. Now we move on to episode 2 with talking about upsets and underdogs today.
Everybody's favorite topic.
I know. Everybody loves the underdog, huh?
Everybody. How can you not love the underdog?
I think that is very true. So let me ask you, what is the underdog to you?
So to me, an underdog, the most obvious answer is, are you like the point spread? Like obviously if you're going, when it comes to college sports, I feel like in Alabama going up against an FCS team, they're probably favored by
100 points.
100 points. Not even being exaggerated. So obviously they would be an underdog. So obviously there's blatant obvious underdogs. But I also kind of think of underdog, I feel like it's a mentality. So, I mean, bear with me here.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like every great athlete like keeps the underdog mentality in their head. Because I feel like you have to, because if you don't, you almost get complacent and stop chasing greatness.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. But, you know, for me, it's like the underdog story has been around for a long time. We all want to root for the underdogs. I mean, if you could go...
David and Goliath.
There you go. As far as back as David and Goliath, man. I mean... You know, you had the Israelites losing to the Philistines, and then, you know, everybody was scared to fight Goliath, and then little old David come along and with his 5 little rocks and what do you call that thing? I can't even think of it.
It was a slingshot.
Right? There you go. Yeah,
boom.
Yeah, and takes down the chop his head off at that too. Now let me tell you, I know we in the future, right? But back then when they was taking people's heads off, if you beat them, imagine if that was it today. Like the underdog wins and it's like, all right, other team, it's time to get beheaded. Jeez, this is rough, dude.
Oh, man.
But yeah, like
actual gladiators
going on right now. But yeah, everybody loves that. I mean, and I think that just goes with personal life. People who, unless you are part of that sports, like you mentioned Alabama, unless you're a part of the Alabama squad, why would you want to go for anyone else? Like if you went to Alabama, you're used to winning championships and you're used to being the top dog every year. Even if you're not a fan of certain sports, but for example, the Warriors. Why wouldn't I want to go for the Warriors? Because they win every year. If I'm used to that winning, why would I want to go anywhere else? You know? So, you know, unless you're like grown up in that underdog life, grew up in that underdog mentality, I think majority of the nation has. And that's why, you know, because not everybody is born with a golden spoon in their mouth. You know what I'm saying? So, I think that's why we all can relate in that aspect. I mean, look at bars or even just the stadium. When the underdog wins, the crowd goes wild. It's just, you know, it's unbelievable, man.
It is. And I think a lot of that has to do with, I mean, look, let's make no bones about it. They're underdogs for a reason. They're underdogs and they're upsets for a reason because they really do not happen that often. Because if they did, they wouldn't be considered upsets.
That's very true, yeah.
So I think another part for me is that unpredictability of like, you're so set on, okay, I'm going to watch this to watch it, but I know how this ends. And then it just doesn't.
Right.
And it's usually, for me, it almost plays out in the similar way. You see this a lot in March Madness, where I would say the majority of upsets typically happen with sports. the way I feel like it happens is you got the underdog. Let's say it's like, I don't know, 12 seed, 13 seed. They're playing the higher seed. And it starts out, they're keeping the game close. So initially you're like, okay, they've kept it close through a half. But, you know, this other team, they're going to pull away. It's going to happen. So, like, for instance, a more topical example we touched on episode 1. So St. Peter's when they were playing Kentucky.
Right.
So they're playing Kentucky, and I remember watching it, and then I turned it on when it got close to halftime. I'm like, this game's really close. Like, I would have expected Kentucky to pull away at this point.
Right.
And the second half starts, and, you know, I'm texting some people. I'm like, hey, guys, are you watching this game? Like, I think you were one of the ones I texted. And a lot of the responses I got was, yeah, but, you know, it's only the second half.
Right.
Just wait. Kentucky's going to finally. And I kept waiting for that moment, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
So once it came to overtime, I was like, this is not where Kentucky wants to be. Like, so I feel like we have this thought of the underdog, like they just come out and they're just triumphant from the get-go. And that's not necessarily true. I feel like there's a lot of, they get beaten down and they battle back, and they get beaten down and they battle back. So I think that speaks to a lot of the underdog mentality that we admire, just that fact of they kept trying to knock you down and you kept getting back up. And because of that, you were victorious. It's kind of the idea of, we all want to think that the harder we work, eventually it's going to get rewarded, which I would say is true for the most part. There's obviously specific examples where it doesn't work out, but I think we want to believe that. Like, the more that we put into it, the more it's going to, you know, eventually it's going to work out. And that is very much an underdog mentality, I think. And that's typically how underdogs and upsets happen.
Yeah, for sure. But what I love most, for me personally, about underdogs is the hunger. Like, I think when you're so like I mentioned earlier, when you're so used to winning, it's just like you expect that to be given to you. But when those underdogs, they're like, yo, we want this. They're clapping at the crowd. They're like yelling. They're like we're going to do this. Like, it's just that hype. And as a viewer, you just like I want some of that too. Like, I want some of that energy. It's just like so it's just so contagious. Like, you just want to be a part of that. Yeah. And that's just so awesome. But, so yeah, I mean, and that's why we decided to do this episode. And before we go on, so today we have our top 5, and not in any particular order, just our top 5 of underdog or upsets that we've seen throughout the years of us, you know, enjoying sports. And I just want to point one thing out, and I don't know if you notice this like I do, but like if I'm watching a sports channel, ESPN, Fox Sports, whatever like that, and they always show, like, you know, they do greatest upsets and stuff like that from time to time. And then when they do one, they always show one that's like 1898 when this person beat that. I'm like, bro, yo, like, who was there to see this really happen?
That's a good point.
And then how did you get footage? Like, I thought technology was new. How do we get this footage in 1898?
The sport broadcasting world had powers way beyond.
Like, yo.
They were so far advanced in the game. Find vaccines for polio? Nah. We're going to film this
underdog story. Like, what?
That's where we're using our intelligence and our expertise.
Seriously. So the list that we have together, I mean, the latest date I think I see is the 1980 that you have right there. I think that's and I was born in the 80s. So, you know,
I had a very specific point. Like, I had a very specific reason for picking that one.
Yeah, and so, you know, you won't find anything further than that, than the 80s, because I mean. Yeah. I can't now. If somebody else is viewing this where they was around, and we would love to be, you know, drop some knowledge on us. Let us know. I would love to go review what you have to say. So just drop a comment. Don't forget, I forgot to mention this earlier, but like and subscribe to our channel and pass the word along. And then also, if you look behind me, I don't know, from following the first episode. There was no Yankees and 49ers jersey up there. And I told you I was going to make it happen. And I sure did make it happen. And we still have more to come, guys. We still have more to come.
I showed him mercy.
Thank you, Joey, for giving me the space. And for putting my teams up there. All right, let's get into these underdog stories. So, if you want to start off, Joe Man, with your first list over there, you have the 2015-2016 Lancaster City wins Premier League odds 5,000 to 1.
So sorry, I got to go back over this. So it's 2015 to the 2016. We're talking Premier League here, which will be very interesting because Premier League not that big in the United States. So Leicester City, the Foxes. I know it's super weird how it's
pronounced. Let everybody know
City.
If they don't know what the Premier League is, it's soccer. Like we're talking about soccer right now.
So we're talking the top of the top soccer. They call it football. Really, it's just, it's not really football, but we'll go.
That's another.
It's not the real football.
Another day.
The Leicester City. So amazing upset. I think the thing that's most impressive about this is this upset occurred across an entire season. So real quick, if you guys don't understand how the Premier League works. So there's like regulations of the Premier League, kind of like minor league baseball. The top of the top is called the Premier League. What's crazy is with like baseball, players get promoted and demoted, and the Premier League teams can get demoted. So if you don't stay within like a top % of the Premier League, your entire team gets bumped down into the lower league.
Like Ted Lasso.
It's exactly like Ted Lasso.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're talking about like regulation.
Yep.
So to make this a little faster, because I know we have a lot of upsets to get to, Leicester City just got out of regulation. They had just been promoted to the Premier League that year. Their only goal was to not be relegated.
And what does relegated mean?
Means drop down to the lower league.
All right.
So keep that in mind. And then out of nowhere, they just kept winning. So those 5,000 to 1 odds, that was one bookkeeper that was just like, we'll throw them some odds. Why not?
Okay.
And then they won the whole league. Wow. So think about it this way. Most upsets, it's one game. This was an entire season that they had to sustain. They more or less led the Premier League wire to wire from when it started in August to the end of May.
Okay.
I mean, they dropped out of first a couple times, but like everybody kept waiting. It again is kind of like the March Madness. Like they kept waiting. Okay, well, Leicester's going to slip up. Never slipped up. They just kept winning, and they had a ton of comeback wins, like a lot of comeback wins. That's why I picked that one. Huge deal in England, really all over the world. I felt like it didn't really get the coverage it deserved over here in the States. So, again, I'm not the biggest soccer fan, but I do like that one. I remember because that's why I started getting into the Premier League. I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Watching the upset.
Which is the fact that they sustained it through an entire season.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of like when Las Vegas hockey. When they brand new to the league and they went all the way to the Stanley Cup. When's the Stanley Cup?
No, they didn't win. They lost.
Oh, did they not win?
They lost to the Washington Capitals.
Okay.
They lost in 5 games.
Oh, that's when Ovechkin. Yeah. You're right. Okay. Well, I mean, still getting to the Stanley Cup, like that's just
it's impressive.
It is.
That one's interesting because they kind of benefited from some see as a slightly rigged
getting those
draft because they were allowed to take a lot of good players.
Yeah, but still, I mean, being a new league, being like having brand new teammates.
I was cheering for them, not because look, I love Ovi. Ovi's a great player. I was cheering for them though, just because like when in our lifetime will we see that happen again?
Yeah, that's true.
The Kraken didn't do it this year. Yeah. They didn't even make the playoffs. Yeah. They were the newest hockey team.
Yeah.
So I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So that was his first pick, the Lancaster City from 2015-2016 Premier League, winning it. So I will start off something that I saw recently, which I thought was super fascinating. For a 30 for 30 on ESPN. It was the 1996 Masters. I'm a huge golf, Joe. You know how much I love my golf. I'm a huge golfer.
This man convinced me to buy a pair of golf clubs or a set of golf clubs.
And it's just like, I just absolutely love it. But This Masters featured Nick Faldo and Greg Norman. And if you don't know these players, I mean, Nick Faldo, great golfer, one of those, no holds barred kind of players. Like, he will talk crap and beat you all day. Greg Norman, known as the Shark, has his own actually clothing line. I don't know if you ever seen a clothing line that has an actual shark on it. But dude came in here, good looking guy, blew up on the scene of golf, came on, get endorsements left and right. He was just the man. But why this Masters was so interesting is that Greg Norman, he was 6 shots ahead on the final day at the Masters, at the greatest golf course ever, never been to. If somebody watches this and have access pass, can you get us some so we can go and see this? But I mean,
at the number one priority
at the Masters, 6-shot lead, right? He loses the tournament by 5 shots. So that means that he dropped essentially 11 shots. On next day, he had 4 bogeys and 5 double bogeys. He played like me at the Masters or anywhere on the regular course over here. He played like me. But the thing was that Faldo had so many chances to win a major that was his 6 shots up. That's it. That is yours. And you know how this is so important, because even Nick Faldo, this is the Masters. I'm like, dude, you fumbled it. You lost. I won. Look at me. Nick Faldo went over to him and said, I don't even know what to say to you. I just came over here to give you a hug. Like, because what do you say? Like, someone who has been chasing this, and prior to the Masters, Greg Norman, he was in first place leading into Sunday 6 out of the 7 times he was in a major, and lost every single one. When he was 6 shots ahead at the Masters, everybody was like, there's no way. Yeah. You just play conservative. You play smart golf. He was playing like he was trying to come back. He was in a lead. That has to be like, and people might say, a conversation we won't get into right now, and why I have this on my list, and I actually have 2 golf stories on my list. But the reason why I have this one on my list specifically is because people don't realize how hard the game of golf really is. You see a stick and a ball, and you just think, oh, I can do it.
Yeah.
Golf is one of the hardest sports you can play.
I agree. I feel like there's a lot of patience involved with that.
So much patience involved in that. And it can go, and when you don't have that patience, you can blow a 6-shot lead and lose by 5 shots. That's exactly what happens. So that's why, and if you ever, and this is more, and the reason why it's the upset and the underdog is because of that 6 shots. By all means, Nick Faldo is not a bad player. He's not an underdog. If they were neck and neck, if he had a shot over, this wouldn't even be a story. Great, but 6 shots made this a story. So that's why I put this in as one of my upsets and underdogs. Not because of the person that won, but because of the person that lost.
That's a good point. I like that point. I never thought about that way. It's like, if you're that good, not only is it like an unbelievable upset now, but now it's like probably one of the greatest comebacks.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So.
All right. So number 2 on you, if you want to go right ahead.
All right. Number 2, you got to do it. You know what's coming. So Buster Douglas over Mike Tyson.
Yes. And I have this on my list too. And this is something
which should tell us how, like, oh my God.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, when we do these lists, and we have more lists in the future, we don't talk about what we put down. As we're writing down our lists, and we have a whiteboard, we write everything on a whiteboard. As we write these down on a whiteboard, we sit there and we look, oh, you have the Buster Douglas too? But the reason why we decided to keep it is because he can bring up points that I'm like, you know what, I didn't even realize, and I can bring up points that I didn't realize. But it's so good that I don't mind talking about it again the second time. But I'll let him go on and talk about this right here.
I like that you said it, because I think I'm going to spin this in a way you might not think about.
Okay.
So obviously, for the most part, if you're into sports, you probably know about this upset. You know the odds, 42-1.
Yeah.
Only like one, I think it was either one or two sports books that even made the odds. That's how much everyone's like, this is a joke. It was thought, the fight was thought to be essentially a warm up for Tyson to take a rematch at Holyfield,
yes.
right? Holyfield, yeah. The reason I put this on here was because not just obviously unbelievable that Buster Douglas beat him. So I'll come out as, I don't like to talk about my age, but I was not alive when this happened. The reason I bring that up is because
you wasn't alive when a lot of these happened.
the reason I brought this up was I feel like with people in my age group, we didn't get to see Tyson in his prime. By the time I was really old enough to watch sports, Tyson was pretty much retired. We saw him as the goofy guy from the Hangover movies, the guy who has the Adult Swim show.
Yeah.
Which it's not bad if you ever watch the show. It's kind of
it's actually funny. Yeah,
he's basically like running like a Scooby Doo.
Yeah, with Mike Tyson, which is hilarious. Yeah,
but like I'm not saying we don't take him seriously, but like, you know, he's kind of a goofy guy, at least to me. I will never, and I kind of feel robbed almost in the sense of, I don't think I'll ever be able to fully grasp the greatness of Tyson. So at one point, this guy was viewed as like the deadliest, I feel bad saying deadly, but the best fighter in the world. Like, you did not take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
You didn't get up when he knocked you down. Like, I don't think I'll be truly able to fathom just like the sheer dominance that Mike Tyson had, which is kind of sad in a sense. But obviously that's actually a larger conversation about how we reflect on older athletes and all that. But still, even through all the documentaries, they did a good enough job where I could still feel just like how ginormous that was. Right. When you talk about people who were alive then, it was just, whoa. In fact, I don't know if you know the band The Killers. I'm not endorsing The Killers or anything. They're a decent band, but they actually have a song called Tyson versus Douglas. And it's basically, the whole song is basically a reflection on what that was like
during that
when Tyson went down. Like, one of the lines is like, when I saw him go down, thought that somebody cried, but you know. So again, like an alt rock band's making a song. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Very big deal. And the last point I want to make to it, and I'll throw it to you, is I'm a sucker for like heartstring stories. And I don't know if you know this, you probably do. They say that Douglas beat Tyson because he had a better why. So what I mean by that is, like, and you kind of touched on this earlier, he had like a better reason to win.
Right.
Like, Tyson went into that. I mean, again, you will never know what his mindset was, but he probably went into that like, okay, get through this fight, on to the next one. So Buster Douglas was training for this fight. And his mom, here's kind of how the story goes. You know, he was kind of coming home to his mom, and his mom would talk to him. And she's like, "Are you really going to do this fight?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Are you sure?" Like, because everybody at her work started hearing about him. They're like, "Is your son really going to fight Mike Tyson?" And she's like, "Yeah." And she didn't, it was interesting because her husband was a boxer too, and she didn't really know much about boxing outside of that. She's like, "They keep telling me you shouldn't fight him." In fact, she even went to her husband and she's like, how bad is it? Like how bad is this Tyson guy? Even her husband's like, he's the real deal.
Yeah.
It's tough. But then all of a sudden her son came home one day and she's like, "You can't do this. Please don't. Like, just, it's not worth it." He's like, "Listen, Mom, I'm gonna win this fight." He's like, "I'm gonna win this fight." I don't know how he said it. I don't know what his mindset was, but his mom started believing him to the fact of she starts going back to, she goes to work the next day, and anytime anybody would say anything to the fight, she's like, "Listen, my son's gonna win this fight. So he's gonna beat Mike Tyson." kind of a sad, tragic turn. His mom actually passed.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if it was a month before the fight or a couple. It was like right before the fight. Like, can't be more than a month. So the story goes, everybody at that point, it got even worse. Like, oh my God, his mom passed. Like, this is it. Like, how's he going to fight? Fast forward, he won the fight. A lot of people think that it made him more ready to go in and fight. Wins the fight. Obviously, they come up to him. Oh my God, how'd you do it? Again, the old line, you knocked out Goliath. He goes, listen. He goes, my mom said I was going to win this fight. I told her I was going to win this fight. I'm going to win the fight. So I always thought, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just interesting. It's like that mentality, like you spoke, like it's unbelievable how much a mentality can just change.
Yeah, and again, you made a great point. It's Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet. Like, he just didn't have that nickname just to have the nickname. Not only that, he was the heavyweight champion of the world, 37-0 at that time, 33 knockouts.
That's crazy.
Mike Tyson, dude. So to go in there and do that, to knock him on the ground, and then the underlining that I get from all of this is that after that fight, Mike Tyson was never the same.
Never the same. How can you be the same? Like,
now I mean, like I said, not the same like in his career. Now, would I have stepped in the ring? Heck no. But as far as professionally, I mean, he had the incidents with the biting in the air, with his outside world,
That was actually before that.
No, it wasn't.
You'll have to fact check me. I'm pretty sure the biting of the ear happened before that fight, actually.
No, it happened after. So the Douglas fight was 1990. The biting of the ear was like 96, 90,
I'm wrong.
Something like that.
Misread something on the internet.
I mean,
Good life lesson for everybody. You can't believe everything you read on the internet.
I remember that. That was Evander Holyfield. Yeah, but this was when they was like older. When they was, this was the rematch. So remember, you just said that Holyfield fight was supposed to have happened between him and Mike Tyson. This was like a warm up with the Buster Douglas. So they finally made that fight happen later. So that this was after that. So yeah. I don't know what kind of sports wiki you was on, but it's all good.
I swear I do a better job.
I'm with that. Good talk about that. And so we'll move on to the next one, leading to yours, because I had Buster Douglas on mine at the bottom, but I moved that to the top. So now let's go into your 1980 U.S. men's hockey team over USSR.
So I'm going to hold back on saying a lot after this because we do have the list to get there. I want to make sure we get enough time, and I'm going to come back to this one. If you don't know this story, shame on you to call yourself a sports fan. I'll just come out right and say it. If I truly believe this is the greatest upset in sports history.
Okay.
In sports history. And I'll be real brief on why. Obviously, we all know the story. The average age of the American team was 22 years old. These were college kids. These were semi-pros. Nobody knew much of them. And they defeat Soviet Union, who going into that Olympics had won the last four straight Olympics.
Yeah, they won every last one. Yeah.
Last 16 years, they have been the champions.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure the average age of them was like in their 30s. These were grown men.
And they just train different over there. Yeah, they're just a whole nother beast.
A whole nother beast. Like essentially going up against children.
Yeah.
Children who they beat like 10-1 a couple weeks prior to the Olympics. Story goes, U.S. wins 4-3. The reason why I put this above all others is because the impact it had not just on the sports world, but literally global. I don't like to talk about politics too much, but it truly had an effect on the global politics. A lot of people consider this almost more or less the beginning of the end for the Soviet Union. Soviet Union actually collapsed 11 years later. And a lot of people point to this
as the reason?
As the reason why. Because it's weird, but on the national stage, on a world stage, we essentially embarrassed them. So that's why I put it at the top. Like it's its implications were just farther reaching than just hockey.
Yeah.
So, and also it happened on U.S. soil. There's a lot more I'm going to get into about it, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it to you.
Yeah, I mean, good points. Like I said, at that time, I mean, unless you was really into hockey, like now, you know, I love my Rangers, so I love hockey. But at that time, if you wasn't following, because I mean, even now, hockey is I think it's still an evolving sport. Like it's still growing. As hard as that sounds, like it is still growing. Just like I think you know how much I love golf. I think the game of golf is still growing, even though it's been around for centuries. I think it's still
soccer
growing.
in the U.S.
Soccer in the U.S. is still growing. So I think you know with what was going on, you know, for you to say it was the greatest, the story behind it, yes, I 100% agree with you. I think sports, for it to be as big as you say it is, at that time, if somebody out from the outside looking in would probably just sit here and say, it's just hockey. You know what I'm saying? Like, and listen, I agree. I just said I agree with you, but I'm just thinking of this perspective of somebody else who hockey is not, just like you just mentioned, the Lancaster City Premier League, it's not that big. Like this just happened in 2015, 2016. But you walk up to somebody and told them, hey, you remember that? 9 times out of 10, they'd probably be like, I don't know.
I think it wasn't big because, again, you're talking about, I mean, with all due respect, these are apples to oranges. Leicester City, that is in England. It's an English team made up of England people where the games show at like 8 a.m. Eastern time here. 1980, you're talking about U.S.
Yeah, and so
U.S. men's hockey team.
I 100%
played, and you know those Olympics. They were in the U.S. They were in Lake Placid, New York. I really feel like you're underselling.
No, I'm not underselling anything. What I'm saying is that for me and for like we have 2 different backgrounds. So if I went to one of my boys and I'm like, yo, remember that 1980s hockey team? They'd be like, Carlos, what are you talking about right now? Like, what?
It's interesting.
You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody would know what the heck. Now, if you showed them, if you exposed it to them, then I think you have I think I would agree with you. It probably was the biggest upset.
Okay.
And
so
that's how I get
it. I think we're talking in 2 different spheres here, though. So like right now, yeah, I'll agree with you. I bet you there's lots of people I know that don't know what the 1980 U.S. men's hockey team is.
Right, yeah.
But we got to look at these upsets, I think, kind of in when they happened. So that was my whole point with Buster Douglas is I could tell somebody about the Buster Douglas fight to them. If you don't really grasp the dominance of Mike Tyson, you can respect it, but I feel like it's hard to like truly, like if you were alive when that happened.
Right.
I think if you were alive when this happened, it would be very hard to find a soul in the U.S. that did not know, at least like, oh yeah, I heard we upset the Soviet Union.
Point. That's a great point. I give you that one for sure. Great point. All right, moving on. So on my side, next up, I have another golf story. But I only have 2, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're getting tired of it. But the reason why I had to bring this one up is because it involves the reason why I love golf so much. The reason why I watch it every time it's on is because of the one and only Tiger Woods. Where's the button at? Where's the button? When I say Tiger Woods, it deserves that actual applause. It is Tiger Woods. So the reason why we talk about this is that this is from the 2009 PGA Championship. Y.E. Yang versus Tiger Woods in the final round of the PGA Championship.
Did he lose this?
He did.
Oh no!
That's what I'm saying.
Where I saw this going.
No, yes. This is what I'm saying.
You said 09. I'm like, ooh.
Yes, this is when he lost. So, and this is why this is an upset. One, you're going against Tiger Woods. Anybody going up against, and Tiger Woods was in the lead on the final day. And why this is huge, Tiger Woods in the final round at that time, anytime he led in the final round of a championship, 14-0. 14-0. And mind you, he had 14 majors already. That was supposed to be his 15th major right there, and he was in a league. So to me, like when you took this right here in golf. To me, was a David and Goliath situation right here. Like Tiger Woods was Goliath without a doubt. Tiger Woods is Tiger Woods. And then on the other end of the spectrum, Y.E. Yang, I mean, he was why also that no one would have thought. And I know I should have looked up for the odds of this because it is Tiger Woods, but I didn't. But I can guarantee you, because Y.E. Yang was the first Asian to win a major. He's from South Korea. He was the first Asian to have. So when you go in and say no Asian has ever won at this level, it's Tiger Woods. Like everything was saying, there's no way that this guy is going to win at all. There was everything going against him, and he went in there. And what I mean, if you follow golf, Tiger Woods was. I mean, he had it going on, but when he reached the green. When he was putting, his putting game failed him. And you need to have a good putting game when you golf. You have to. That's the only way that you can win is if you have a good putting game. And he didn't that day, and he lost. And so with everything against this kid from another country, barely speaking the language, coming in here facing the greatest golfer of all time, and he beats him, that says a lot. That's like, now, once he beat Tiger Woods, he disappeared. Like, you haven't heard from that dude since. I don't know if that's the Tiger effect or he just couldn't handle the pressure, but I don't know where this dude is now. But at that time, it was a big deal. So that's why I have this on my list right now.
All right. So, quick question before we move on, because I'm kind of curious. I thought of this when you were talking.
Yeah.
So, you said he was the first Asian to win. Hideki Matsuyama, I really hope I pronounced that
Matsuyama.
Right. Matsuyama. Mm-hmm. Hideki Matsuyama. Wins 2021 Masters. Mm-hmm. Was he the next man of Asian descent to win?
That's a good question. That's something that we would have to research.
I know he was the first one to win the Masters.
Right. So in between that, yeah, I honestly can't think of anyone in between that.
We can check it out.
Yeah, we'll definitely check it out.
Answer.
And if you know the answer to that, please drop it in the comments if we don't find out before that. So, all right, next up for you.
All right, I'll make this one quick because, look, if you're watching our podcast and you don't know this, honestly, I don't know if you should be watching our podcast. So it was
you said that about the hockey team.
No, I think I said that about.
We want people to watch our podcast, dude. If you don't know about it, please watch our podcast anyway. Jeez, Joseph.
Speak for yourself. So it was the 2000 NFL season, so fall of 2007, but the Super Bowl took place in 2008. Giants over the Pats. I mean, listen, I hate the Giants. Helmet catch. Yeah. I hate the Giants. I hate the Pats, but like nobody saw it coming. If anybody tells you they saw it coming, they're lying. Yeah. Everybody thought the Patriots were going to be undefeated that year.
I agree with
the most unlikely catch. I mean, come on.
Oh yeah, David Tyree. Yeah, I mean,
crazy.
Eli Manning. Yeah, I mean, yeah, without a doubt, I agree with that. 100%. And
back to you.
It's the Jets, Pats. Like, I mean, the Pats are the Pats. I mean, Giants, Pats.
Yeah.
The Pats are the Pats. Tom Brady.
And this was, and remember, let's fast forward. Tom Brady already had 3
This is prime Tom Brady, too.
This is prime Tom Brady.
Yeah. Seriously.
Everybody knew what he was about at this point. So.
Yeah. All right. A good one. That's a good one. And I'll go into, this one hurts a lot because this one is close to my heart. The 2001 World Series. Yankees versus Diamondbacks. I literally, if anybody says 2001 World Series, Yankees versus Diamondbacks, any of these words, the first thing that pop in my head, Luis Gonzalez at the plate, Mariano, the greatest reliever of all time, the greatest closer of all time, blooper over his head, inches into center field, and they win the game. Like, I can replay that whole thing in my head. But why, for me, this was an underdog and an upset for the Diamondbacks for me. It's because Yankees, 3 straight World Series. 2001, that was 9/11. I mean, you want to like win for your city.
I'm kind of like, to this day, I'm shocked the Yankees didn't win that just because, like, honestly, if I was on the Diamondbacks, look, you won a World Series, you worked your butt off for it. Kudos to you. I feel like that one is a little hard to celebrate.
No, without a doubt.
Because didn't they win? They won it in New York, right? It won 7 games.
They won it in Arizona.
Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe if they won it in New York, it would be.
Oh yeah, it'd be yeah. But no, they won it in Arizona. The first time Arizona has won anything in 2001. Yeah. I don't think they even won anything ever since.
They haven't won anything since. So because Suns have never won it. Coyotes are not getting close.
Yeah,
Coyotes, you got a long way to go. You gotta figure it out.
That was a PSA to the Coyotes.
I mean, come on now. They're trading away Max Domi. They're trading away. I don't know.
So yeah, it's just and it's the Yankees. The Yankees are the Yankees. I mean, we were we lost the first 2 games, won the next 3, lost the last 2. I mean, and it was something crazy to where it's known to be one of the greatest postseason World Series game ever. I mean, you had 2 extra innings. You had 3 late inning game winners. I mean, it was just, it was just a roller coaster ride. I mean, the only game that really, like Game 3 had George Bush throwing out the pitch for, 9/11. Game 6 was like the one game where it was like a complete blowout. Like Diamondbacks blew the Yankees out. And then we went into Game 7 thinking, all right, we got to keep it close. We did, and we just lost in the 9th inning. So, yeah, that's why, shout out to the backs for doing it. Kurt Schilling, Randy Johnson, they had stellar pitching and stuff. But, it is the Yankees. We should have been raising that banner right then and there, and we didn't. But it's okay. So, that's my spiel about the Yankees. I had to. Even though I didn't want to.
You're good. I'm glad because I don't have a ton to honestly say about that one. But yeah.
All right. Now on to your final one, and then we do have honorable mentions, but these are our last ones right now. So right ahead.
This one, I'm not gonna lie. I wanted to get like a decent array of sports, so that kind of played into me picking this one. But I don't think it should diminish how big of a deal this is. We're going back not too far. 4 years ago, we're going back to 2018 March Madness.
Yep.
Number 16, UMBC beats Virginia, number 1 seed. First time that ever happened in the men's tournament.
Wow.
I recently found out it actually has happened once in the women's. Going to go all the way back to the 80s. I feel bad. I can't remember the year. However, it was number 16 Harvard over the Stanford Cardinal.
Mm.
A lot of questions about that one, though, because the Cardinals had a lot of injured players. So real fast, I'm going to put the men's tournament in perspective. Not only was Virginia a 1 seed, they were the number 1 overall seed.
Mm.
They had lost like 3 or 4 games that year. Just crazy dominant. And this one actually breaks the upset rule because UMBC almost led wire to wire. Mm. Like they won the game by almost 20 points. Like like watching that game, it was almost like Virginia forgot how to play basketball. Crazy. Like, yeah, that was something I thought, eventually you always say, well, it's going to happen eventually. That was one I didn't think was going to happen for a while. Mm. But it happened. Now UMBC, they lost the next game, but
they will
always
be
able to say that.
Yep, in the history books. So and that is a big deal. Number 16 over number 1. That's one of the things that it's like being struck by lightning or just something crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like number 16 beat number 1 never happened.
Not even just the number 1, the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah.
So many people, including my poor self, picked Virginia to win that tournament.
Of course. Who would pick, the only people that picked number 16, probably, people who just wanted a quick buck and was like, hey, I'm going to put my last $100 on this. Or
God, I wish I was one of those people.
Me too. I'm not going to lie. I sure do. But no one would have taken UMBC over Virginia any other way. So, yeah, that is a great one. It's a great mention. And for my last one, we're going to go over to the NBA. The 2004 championship, Lakers versus Pistons. And the reason why I brought this up is because for me, anytime we watch sports, we love to see the action. We love to see the drama. We love to see the offense. But what was crazy is that the Pistons at that time, that defense was on another level. And then you're going against Kobe, Shaq, Karl Malone, Gary Payton. That's when they did that trade, and they had before. Everybody talk about now with big threes. The Lakers had a big four that no one talks about. Okay, so they need to stop with this. And then you look over to the other side with the Pistons. You're talking Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince. These were dudes that was just some of them came over in trades. They built. Larry Brown was coaching them. They coached. And not only it wasn't like it was a game 7, final shot or something. No, it was just, I think it was 4-1. They just demolished them. It was no competition. That defense shut the Lakers down. And I don't know, and I don't remember this, and I should have researched this, didn't even think about it, but I don't know after that if the Lakers stayed together after that. I think they was together to try to win it that year, and I think Malone retired or something like the team just,
Did Malone ever win one?
No, that was his chance right there. His chance right there was that.
He was part of the Jazz.
Yes, with Jock Stockton. Yep. And
only
he just
for
never,
the Bull if the Bulls weren't a thing.
Yep, he didn't have a chance. But so that's why when it's the Showtime Lakers, it's just the Lakers. Anytime the Lakers lose something like this, not like I said, and when Kobe and Shaq not just lose, it wasn't like a game 7. It was like a complete demolish of defense and just shut them down. And so that's why I was just like, you know what, we have to get the Pistons on there for doing that.
I respect it.
So
it's a good pick.
Yeah, that was mine. All right, so down to the final 2 of our honorable mentions.
Right. So I'll go ahead and go first because
Yeah.
I love the one that you picked. I actually have a lot to say about that.
Well, we can't do a lot of it, Joey. We gotta
honorable mention. It's coming. I picked the 2017-2018 Eagles. I picked the entire postseason. Straight up. They were underdogs in the divisional round, the conference championship,
Yes, they were.
and the Super Bowl.
Yes, yep.
And they won them all.
The greatest Eagles quarterback of all time.
It was Foles. I'm not going to go.
Foles. I'm sorry. Yep, Foles.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's why they were underdogs, because they were going with the backup quarterback.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Now, I'm not going to go as far and say he's the greatest Eagles player of all time. Listen, he's always going to have a special place.
All right, and I'll go into mine, which you say you had a lot to say about. And which I'm surprised. If you had a lot to say about it, I don't know why you didn't put it down. But I guess you had to choose the Eagles.
Well, you don't know what's coming about.
All right.
I have an interesting point.
2002, Pats over the Rams, the greatest show on turf. The Rams back then. Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner. They had I forgot the oh my god, I can't think of his name, but the wideout, the wide receiver, I can't even think of his name. But anyway, they was just unbelievable back then. And you have the Pats, Tom Brady's outcoming party, 2-minute drill. He was born. He was born for that. And then the Rams were a 14-point favorite. No one.
I know what the line was.
No one thought that they were going to do anything.
I know what the line was.
So you got to give it up to. I know how much you talk about Tom Brady,
upset.
but
let me tell you why this is not an upset. So I understand the 4-point underdog.
14
points.
Yeah.
Here's my point. Why I say it's not an upset. Throw the numbers out. That's fine. Give me the numbers. Give me all you want. And this, unfortunately, is a case of hindsight is 2020. I think this was simply a case of we just didn't fully respect and understand the greatness that was the duo of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady.
But how can you if this was their first time?
So Tom Brady, I'll give you. Tom Brady, okay, he kept winning all season, so you really shouldn't have doubted him, but I get it, against the greatest show on turf. My bigger issue is with
Belichick?
Disregarding Belichick. Mm-hmm. So here's my thing about Belichick, and I think this is his signature that a lot of people don't talk about.
Did he win prior to this? Or
so he didn't win as a head coach.
Okay.
He was the defensive coordinator of the New York Giants.
Yes, with Bill Parcells,
exactly,
right?
when they beat the Buffalo Bills in the Bills' first Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So, stop me if you heard this before. Mm-hmm. Going into that Super Bowl, all of the chatter was about how are you going to slow down and stop the Bills' offense? They were running an up-tempo offense, which is really unusual for the NFL at that time.
Yeah.
Nobody thought you could stop them. Do you know who stopped them?
Belichick?
Bill Belichick. So my point is, I think there's a lot of parallels with that. Going into this Super Bowl, how are you going to stop the greatest show on turf? How on earth are you going to slow them down?
All right, valid point.
That's his thing.
Yeah.
He slowed him down. He slowed him down enough for Tom Brady to make the drive. So that, and again, I know it's difficult to say because hindsight's 2020. Now, if the Patriots never went on to win another Super Bowl and Tom Brady ends up being a mediocre quarterback, I know it's blasphemy to say. Okay, I'll give you that's an upset. But now knowing what we know
about Tom Brady
and Bill Belichick, somehow, for the most part, finding ways to slow the Rams' offense down. The 2019 Super Bowl, when the Pats played the Rams. Mm-hmm. Same chatter. The Rams are an offensive powerhouse right now. How are you going to slow them down? Mm-hmm. They held the Rams to 6 points, was it? Mm-hmm. That's what he does. Yeah. That is what Bill Belichick does.
Yeah. And
then Tom Brady, look, we just didn't know at the time. You can't blame us, but he's greatness.
Yeah, no, so for sure.
That's what he does. You tell him he's not going to win, he somehow finds a way to win.
Hey, all valid good
Unless
points.
It's 2018 and you're playing the Birds. Or the 08 Giants.
Good. Hey, good valid points. I can't argue with that.
So I guess my final point is, should that affect how we look at upsets? So what I mean is, does a team's legacy, if they go on to be great, does that diminish their prior upset?
No.
Okay.
No. Because that could have been the start of why they're great. Because it can go either way. It can be the start of why they're great, or it could be the fall. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the Y.E. Yang. He could have won. He just beat Tiger Woods. You're on a high. Yeah. You can say, I just beat the greatest golfer of all time, and just, have your cojones all the way to the floor, walking down golf course, just beating everybody. Yeah. But he couldn't do that. So along with Tom Brady, what could have happened when he beat the Rams? Tom Brady was like, they thought they was going to beat us by 14. I was picked 199. You know what? This ain't the last of me. Let me keep going. He's 45 and still going right now. So, no, I don't think it diminished anything. I think it just depends on what happens after they win. You can continue to go on to be the greatest quarterback of all time, or you can just be that one and done who had an upset at one time in his life and now it's in the history books.
That's a good point, but I still, at the very least, I think it's a bigger topic and conversation people need to have when they talk about upsets. I think your legacy matters, and like what you do afterwards should affect how you reflect on it.
Yeah, I think without a doubt, I think your legacy matters. But like I said, if you're a one and done, there is no legacy. You're just an upset.
Well, your upset's your legacy is the upset.
That's
what I'm saying.
So okay, and and we have to wrap it up. But just one last point, and then you can counter if you want. But what I'm saying is legacy. When I think of legacy as Tom Brady. 7 rings. He doesn't have to win every year, But in his span of his career and what he's done to the game, what he has done for the game, what he has left behind for the game, that is a legacy. When you do a one and done, you're on our board as an upset or an underdog. That's just how I see it.
Okay. I respectfully disagree. I think upsets. I think you're like if your upset can either be the legacy can either be the upset or you can build on it.
Yeah.
And I think as you build on it, the kind of
so what would come next after a legacy? If you build on it, is it just a bigger legacy?
Yeah, it's just a bigger.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I mean. If we have a better word for it.
No, I don't know. I was just asking.
No, it's a good question. I never thought about that. It's a really good question.
All right. Well, hey guys, drop in your comments about what you think about this question from Joey. I mean, is an upset part of a legacy? Like, is that your legacy if you just have that one upset, or is it more? Yeah.
So, like number 16, UMBC, they will probably never do anything other than that. But you know what? When you talk about the 2018 March Madness tournament, yeah, Villanova won it. But you know what more people are going to talk about? They're going to talk about number 16, UMBC. Even if they never did anything else.
Yeah.
They cemented their legacy.
I don't think
Tom Brady did not cement his legacy with that upset. He cemented his legacy with 7 Super Bowls.
I don't think UMBC did his legacy anything. They just had one upset. That's it. I don't think that's like a legacy. But like I said, guys, dude, we got to wrap it up. Guys, like I said,
just get so excited talking about this.
I know. Comment, click like, subscribe. And let us know what you think about this whole podcast. Give us your thoughts on the biggest upsets of all time.
Yeah, if we forgot, I'm sure there's a bunch of upsets
there's a whole bunch.
So please let us know.
Drop them. We want to know about it. And maybe we'll do another.
You'll be wrong, but you can still voice your opinion.
And then maybe we even go into another episode with even more upsets. Who knows? Maybe we'll do a viewer upsets. Take you guys' ideas. Maybe we'll have some kind of, I don't know, upset special or something like that. That'd be really cool.
I definitely did not think we would spend it like.
I
should have saw this coming.
Yeah. Hey, good talk as always, dude. But let's leave off at this mark. We're going to do it today in sports history as we always do when we finish our podcast. June 13th, 2019, Raptors beating the Warriors. First ever championship for the Toronto Raptors. So yeah, today on Sports History, that happened.
Kawhi Leonard,
yes,
cementing his legacy, and then his legacy quickly being devolved by the LA Clippers. I love you, Kawhi. Don't worry.
That's so funny. Do you think the Warriors win against Boston?
Yes, but I think it goes longer than I think. Okay. I thought it would be 5. I'm saying it will go 7 games.
All right, sounds good. Well, guys, again, click like, subscribe. Please show us some love, please. I'm Carlos. This is Joe Man. Appreciate you listening in. And we're going to get out of here with Socratic Sports with our introduction music as our actual music.
Time.
All right.
So abrupt.